genre.
You're right, Mindy. We are going to need more donuts. Welcome to Beyond Geek By Night, where we have been discussing each episode of the Geek By Night podcast. On today's show, we'll be discussing the 34th episode, The Blind Spot. So let's get started because we have a lot to cover. We're about to go beyond Geek By Night. I am your host, Matt Bennett. And here is our awesome panel. I'm joined today by writer and creator Scott Carelli.
Hi.
Writer and executive producer Cassandra Fredrickson.
Hello.
Voice of Charlotte Swift, Rachel Gatlin.
Hi.
And voice of Nathan Gershwin, Brian Brown.
Hello.
In this episode, The Blind Spot, the underdogs undergo Underdog Comics employee training from Gwen. Charlotte Swift decides to meet with Nathan Gershwin in order to find out more information on Billy, who has taken complete control of Swift Industries. Through a series of flashbacks, we learn about the history of Charlotte, Lorelei, and Henry, including a glimpse into the accident that claimed Henry's life. Meanwhile, Lorelei puts her escape plan into action. She works with Madison Powers, Janet Stokely, and Cosmo Peters to hack the robot guards and finally break free of the Supermax prison. In exchange for Charlotte's story, Nathan Gershwin reveals that Billy's power is power amplification, requiring him to work with others in order to use his powers in the first place. Very poetic indeed. Not only that, Billy is responsible for Henry's death, knowing it would drive a wedge between the Swift sisters. Stunned by the news, Charlotte realizes that she and Lorelei's relationship was shattered based on a lie. As Lorelei and the Overachievers become surrounded by security drones, it looks as if their plan will fail until Charlotte Swift arrives to whisk them away. Back at Underdog Comics, the gang finishes their training and is reunited with Victor, who immediately notices that Simon is an android. Awkward. All right. I'm going to start with Scott and Cass because there's a lot in this episode, a lot of big reveals. So I kind of want to start big picture. So Billy's character really crossed a threshold in this episode. He's not just the antagonist anymore. He's a truly evil person now that we know his involvement in Henry's death. What impact do you think this has on the series now that our primary antagonist is revealed to be responsible? I mean, this kind of a new territory here.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of always where I wanted the show to go at a certain point, because we're leading these characters to a point where they're going to become superheroes, and that's not going to happen if there's not an actual threat. You need to be able to establish that doing this is going to take a toll on them, and there's going to be threats beyond people starting fights at karaoke clubs. We didn't want everybody to just be Max. We wanted to be able to show that there was a stark comparison between Max and other villains. They had it easy last season.
Yeah.
It's funny because you mentioned now that he's done this, well, he's always done this.
True.
Like,
yep.
From the beginning,
yep.
Yeah, we just learned about it just now. But the fact is, he was always this guy, which really, now that you know really who this guy is, you go back and you listen to season 1, and it's kind of even creepier. Billy's a creep. And I mean, he is. And I really like that. I think it's cool.
I think Billy is more fun to write now that he's out of the closet, so to speak. Like all of his cards are on the table, and he's like, this is who I am, and kind of take it or leave it. And like season 1 Billy was interesting, but I don't know. I'm more fascinated by him as like a villain, I guess, like a true villain, instead of just like Max's lapdog, So
yeah. So Cass, you've written the 2 episodes that most explore the character and the history of the Swift sisters. Mm-hmm. What is it that attracts you to writing these episodes that heavily feature those 2?
My wheelhouse is people talking about their feelings,
which
I don't know, which is more apparent in a future episode, actually. But this with Ghost Story, I was interested in Lorelai, like this side of Lorelai that we had never seen before. That wasn't kind of like bouncing off the walls and like really like manic and in your face. Like, I think Lorelai is multifaceted, which I like.
Yeah.
And I like exploring that for her. And Charlie is kind of I think I've like adopted Charlie. Like,
hi, Mom.
not you, Rachel. But I think like Charlie fascinates me even more because like there's just so many layers to her, and the way that these two characters interact is really interesting to me, because like the I don't the like the personas that they present to certain people, and like when they're they might be like dealing with each other or like people that they're close to is interesting to me. Like the things that they say or leave unsaid, I feel like says a lot about who they are. And I'm an older sister. I have a younger sister, and I base I borrow loosely from my relationship with my sister when I'm writing them. And it kind of like informs that, which is like really nice. It's kind of like free therapy. So
yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's too, in going back to like the sort of broad strokes, and how what she's talking about relates to Billy. It's like, it's the idea of this theme that we're finding this season, which is not something I think we really set out to do, but it's one that we're finding, is this sort of question of what kind of person is redeemable. And, what are the bad things that you can do that you can, walk back from and redeem yourself from, and who are the kinds of people that cannot do that, that there's no going back. And I think we're starting to see that theme kind of show its head even more so than Max last episode.
Yeah.
We're now seeing it again with Charlie, because Charlie was, a little darker than Max, just a little. And now we're seeing her begin a road to redemption as well. That won't be as full of laughs as Max's, but is happening nevertheless. And then you have someone like Billy, who is kind of the opposite. I mean, last season, it really seemed like he was this put upon, lapdog guy who was just like, God, this guy, I want him to do better. Like I want him to do better. I want him to stop being so stupid. And then you realize that he had darker, ulterior motives for wanting those things. And so there's just this sort of like push and pull. I mean, we're living in this society right now where like people are trying to be redeemed for bad stuff, and they're being like, why can't, why uncancel me, whatever. And it's like, dude, like you did something kind of so reprehensible that you can't come back from that. But then like, somebody like James Gunn says some tasteless jokes, and it's like, well, I mean, you took your penance, you're directing a DC movie, you can come back now. But you know what I mean? Like, so I think there's levels to these things. And it was something that I don't think we didn't go into this season wanting to explore those things, but I think we found that we ended up doing that.
Just came out.
As a result. Yeah.
Yeah. So Rachel, how does it feel to be back in the swing of production with this? Through season 1, there's a strong presence of Charlotte going through the whole series, but we really don't know much about her until the end. And now she's very much at the forefront. So what's that like to see your character grow and change like this?
It's been a lot of work. And I've said before, I was a little worried about this because my last character, as I've said in the first run, didn't really come to anything. So it was great to have more to work with. It's been a bit of an emotional roller coaster though, because as Cass said, there's a lot of emotion in these scenes. So you go from like up here to down here, and it's a lot to deal with. I usually have to record everything in like 2 or 3 sessions because I get so exhausted.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing 2, 3, 4 takes. Sometimes I have to step away, but I'm glad that Charlie's getting a bit of a renaissance in a way, because I didn't want her to be this one-note character. I'm really happy to see this evolution she's going through, and I always knew she was a bit of a wounded bird, and something was really ripped up inside, because why else would there be this rift between her and her sister? Like, something had to pull them apart. Now we know what it was. Aside from like the sister drama. So, you know, I love playing her, and I'm so excited to be on this path with her.
Yeah. Yeah, Brian, you too. You are obviously involved with the show in many ways, but this is kind of a big return of Nathan Gershwin in this episode, and we learned quite a bit about him. So how does it feel to get to be Nathan again?
I like Nathan as a character. He's an interesting character. He's all ego. That's all. That's, you know, for the most part. That's what it is. He's ego, and he's, as long as he's hearing the sound of his own voice, and since his power is connected to his voice, whatever he says and whatever he imagines becomes real. And he's an interesting character. Definitely a very interesting character. He's not your typical bad guy you see. And the fact that he's teamed up with William and possibly other people is neat. It's interesting because, you know, he's not the Cosmo Peters, that's for sure. He's in kind of a different set of, he's really bad. He's not a good guy. He's an egoist, totally and truly. It's an interesting character to play, and how he's written is really well set up, and I really enjoy this episode a lot. And just because there's such a neat tone change between the different stories that are going on. You have the mandatory training that everybody's in, and then you have, you know, the looking back at things with Charlie and Nathan doing his best, you know, Lecter impression.
True,
so
yeah, the quid pro quo, yeah.
He really is. I mean, and that's, you know, when doing the table read for this was Scott and Cass, you know, that was kind of the direction they kind of wanted to make sure to kind of put that in there. And as Cass said, make him a little slimier.
Yeah.
and it is.
Yeah.
Because he is. He's a slimy guy.
It made me a little uncomfortable listening back to it today, I will say.
Yeah. It's a fun one to play, though. It is.
Yeah.
And it's very different from any character I think I've ever played before. And so it's always fun. It's fun to do, definitely. And boy, I can't wait for you guys to see listen to the rest of the episodes too. Because so many plans within plans. It's so wonderful. And it's great. And the writing is always fantastic. And as you know, tip of the hat to Cass and Scott and Nick, because it's Cass writes the gut punch ones. She really does.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
She does. She writes the feels, and it's all the feels, and it's so good. And I really enjoy playing this character. It's a great little character. I'm sure I'll end up being, you know, in jail sooner or later, though. Maybe.
So you mentioned the table read, and I'm interested to know what the table read was like for this episode, because typically you have all the underdogs around and, you know, this full cast, but this episode really centers on a much smaller group. So I'm interested to hear from cast and crew what that table read was like.
It was
trying
good.
to remember.
It was
Right?
fun.
It was so long ago.
Yeah.
It was fun because I think it was fun because it was just us B-roll characters, so to speak. Mm-hmm. It was not the leads, because the leads weren't in our table read at all.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that was half the fun. It was all the secondary crew doing our thing. So it was a lot of fun to do, and it was neat to be able to see the people that we've been playing off of as well, and also, you know, be able to do a live table read like that. At least for me, it was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did something fun. I don't know if anyone noticed. I did something fun in the credits, which is that I credited all of our main cast members, all the underdogs, in the also starring section, and I put all my beer rolls up in the front because they were the star of the show this week. So that was fun to do.
I noticed it because I read the credits, so
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious. I was like, "This is awesome!" So it was really cool.
Scott, were you nervous about doing an episode like this where by design our principal characters are not featured?
I think Cass can attest to this.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. I was extremely nervous because the thing that I'm worried about, we're 4 episodes into a 10 episode final season, and so we only have 6 episodes left after this. And the idea of doing an underdog light episode did freak me out a little bit because I was like, there's only, we have this minimum amount of time to hang out with them. And we're going to jettison that this week with this episode because I knew that it was important for the story that it just be about the Swift sisters separately. I mean, it's literally like the structure is they're separate and then they come together. And I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I knew that the underdogs would kind of just get in the way of that. And they didn't have a story that I could think of that really fit in with, what they were doing. And then at some point, I don't remember when, I figured out the bookends thing. And I think at the beginning, if I remember correctly, Cass was kind of like against it. Like she was like, I don't know if that feels like,
yeah.
And you're like, that feels weird and
it's
bad.
risky.
I was worried that it was gonna like undercut like all the things that we'd been like working on, but like the bookend scenes were like one of my favorite things to direct. So,
well, that's why it was. I think I had the idea of the bookends, but didn't know what they would be for a long time.
Yeah.
And that was when Cass was like very against it. And then when I came up with the idea that like, oh, they're in training the whole episode, like, and boring underdog comics training, not like retail training, not fun, exciting superhero training. And that's why we're not with them. It's almost like us, kind of winking at the audience to be like, hey, they don't really matter right now. We need to be focusing on this other stuff to get the ball rolling. And I think once I presented it that way to Cass, I think then she was on board with it because it was kind of a nothing storyline. It was like a cold
really
open.
nebulous.
Yeah. And so, it also gave the blind spot a third meaning because they were blind to everything that happened in this episode.
Right.
Very true. So Cass, were there any special challenges with both writing and directing an episode like this that's so unconventional compared to the series up to this point?
Yeah, I think the voiceover, like balancing where the voiceover would happen and when it would, or how it would transition into like a flashback and how to make that apparent. I think Scott did a really good job with the sound design in that respect. Because like, her voiceover in like the pub scene or something like that, like it's kind of echoey. So you get this sense of just like, oh, this is Charlie telling her story and not her in the scene. And then picking takes where we have like present day Charlie, who is like who we are familiar with, who's like a little colder and a little more like snippy, I guess. And then you have like flashback Charlie, who's a little more like warm and relaxed. So like finding that balance and like making sure that happens,
I just want to shout out Rachel real quick because
yes, absolutely.
I don't know if she did this on purpose. I'm going to say that she did because she's a great actress. But the idea that the character that she was playing when she first meets Simon in the coffee shop in Friends and Enemies is Charlie when she's like meeting Henry for lunch at the pub. It's the same character. Like she's playing that character. And you sort of now in retrospect, you know that like, oh, we got a little glimpse of like real Charlie there for a second before she went back into her mysterious woman vibe.
I'd like to say I did that on purpose. I don't think I consciously did, though. I did want there to be a contrast between Charlie now and Charlie then. So now that you say it, yeah, it does make sense. She was putting on an act to seem like this like cute, fun girl, like how she used to be, to sort of flirt with Simon. So yeah, sure, I'll take credit for it.
Rachel, did you find it particularly challenging or rewarding to essentially play kind of two different Charlies in this episode? You know, we have Charlie before this traumatic thing happened, and then obviously Charlie today.
Yeah, again, another reason why these recording sessions are a little exhausting for me, because I have to go through so many emotions in one little like microcosm. Yeah, it was fun to, again, go to back to a time when she was happy, and what's that like, and how did she get so damaged that now she has no emotions, really. And one challenging thing that I run into, I actually threw away a take because I tend to record Charlie a little bitchy. And I don't know why I do that.
Resting Charlie face.
Yeah. I think it's because I sympathize with her because she's a woman in a male-dominated field like I am. And if I had a nickel for every time an IT guy mansplained to me, I'd be a very rich woman. So I understand that urge to kind of like bite back and be a little bit like snake-like. But I also try to tone that down because I don't want her to seem too bitchy, but I also want her to seem powerful, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And this next one's for Brian. You know, we haven't seen Nathan in a while, and we get to see a lot of him in this episode. Was it challenging getting back into that role that you seem to like so much? You know, was it, you know, oh, I'm back, or did it take some time to find it again?
It did take a little time to find it. Just the delivery of how Nathan talks, and then also to throw that extra layer of slime on top of it as well. Because now at this point, Nathan knows he's in the catbird seat. He knows he's got, you know, he's working for the bad guy now at this point in time. So I think it took me a little while to figure out how to really do it and get the right pacing down for him too. Because I remember the first time for his Halloween episode, essentially is what I always call it. Scott was like fast, deliver, snap. He wants that kind of snap to the character. And so I try to do that, but sometimes I found that it didn't flow quite as well. And so it was a little challenging to get back into that character, especially since I hadn't played him in a long time too. That's the other thing. It's always challenging to go back. So you have to go back and listen to it. That's what I basically do. I go back and listen to my old takes that I have in there, that I've saved away, squirreled away. You know, I even have stuff from the old Geek by Night squirreled away on my computer. So it's blackmail for Scott later on when I go. We already released him now at this point, so you know.
Yeah, it's not blackmail anymore.
Yeah,
it is power over me, Brian.
Dang it. But no, I mean, it really was. It was a challenge to get back in that character again and get that kind of mindset too. You know, kind of getting that creepy mindset because Nathan's creepy too. Don't get me wrong. He definitely is creepy. That's why he and Billy get along sort of well, I guess. But no, I mean, it was fun though. It's a fun character to get into, but at the end of the day, you don't want to wear that suit too long.
Yeah. What about writing a character like Nathan? Is it something that's pretty easy because he's in your head all the time? Oh, he's your favorite.
It's my favorite. Nathan is my favorite person to write for.
Why is that?
I love a smarmy villain. I love it. It's
Yeah,
But
that is good. I mean, you make him so smarmy.
Thank you.
And that's the funny thing. It was great. You know, like I said, when we were doing the table read cast, like, make him smarmier and slimier, basically. She's like, it's great, but more. And you're like, really? Okay.
You know, at the risk, it's kind of like, I like Nathan because he kind of toes the line to like almost too much, and then like we pull it back. So I like. I don't know. I like campy villains sometimes, but like I feel like that camp has like had no place in this episode. So I'm just like, okay, how do I kind of like, well, not in this storyline anyway. But how do I kind of like, I don't know. We mentioned like Hannibal Lecter earlier, and that was like kind of like an inspiration, like a very early thing we were talking about when we were breaking the episode. So I was kind of channeling that a little, which again is like not a suit you want to wear too long, but it's still it's fun.
Are there any other characters or movies or something like that you channel when you're writing an episode?
I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, Charlie, I think, is also one of the ones that comes easiest to me, because Scott and Nick basically are just like, yeah, do whatever you want with Charlie. so like all of these characters are kind of like established before I really started working with them a whole bunch. So as far as like this episode goes, like Nathan is really fun. Charlie was pretty easy to wrap my brain around. Lorelai's a little trickier, but like emotional Lorelai, I feel like I have a better handle on than like Prison Break Lorelai, which is why Nick did all of those scenes and I did everything else.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay. Me and Nick just that's we did all the Prison Break stuff, and that was so fun. The actual Prison Break, the story with so like in the script in the scene where they're like figuring out how they're going to break out. In the script, it just says they play a song that I'm going to figure out later in post. That in post that turned out to be the Monster Mash. Because I figured I wanted a novelty song because I thought that would be the worst CD to be the only CD that you have is a novelty song. And it was between Monster Mash and the Alvin and the Chipmunks Christmas song. But the thing about the Chipmunk song is you don't remember it, but it has that long intro of Dave like calling out to the Chipmunks and them responding. And it took up like a minute of the track, and then there was only like a minute 15 left, and it wasn't long enough, and I'd have to repeat it and then go through the talking bit again. And I just like it was too much, but it was really funny too. For the minute and 15 seconds that it lasted. But yeah, we ended up going with Monster Mash. But that scene I wrote having no idea really how they were going to break out. Just knowing that there was that Lorelai was a blind spot, and that's it. That's all I had going into that scene. And then in a stream of consciousness, I just broke them out of prison. Like just sort of just sitting there, just thinking, and then and then this could happen. Oh, but then this is a problem. And then, but they could solve it this way. And I think it took me about 2 hours, but yeah, I wrote that scene just like figuring it out as I went along. That was because originally Cass was going to write this whole episode, and then
it got
she did
unwieldy.
Yeah.
It is the longest episode up to this point.
When she was writing it, I was like, just focus on the Charlie stuff right now, and then go back and do the Supermax stuff later. And then at a certain point, she was just like, I don't think I can do the Supermax stuff, but originally she didn't want to have to figure any of it out. She was like, just figure out everything. So I broke those scenes within an inch of their lives. And so like those outlines for those scenes were like 2 pages long.
Yeah.
So that she basically just had to write dialogue, but yeah, Nick and I ended up just doing that pass on all the Supermax stuff, which is similar to how the Ghost Story episode was in terms of like how we broke that up. Because you did all of the amusement park stuff, I did all of the Elliot moving out stuff, and Nick did all of Nathan's stuff. So yeah, we tend to kind of lean on each other's strengths and write the episodes in that way. I know every time that I'm like, oh, it's time for like a chill emotional episode. And then I call Cass because she knows what to do. So
Well, thanks.
yeah.
So this is the part of the show where I want to go around the whole room and ask people if they have a shout out for anybody that worked on this episode. I'm going to start and give a shout out to Jay Malone as Victor for his incredible line at the end of the episode revealing that Simon was in fact an android. I love how deadpan it is and like nobody else knows. It's just, I laughed so hard my first time listening to that. I had to rewind it to re-listen. It was amazing.
I want to shout out, speaking of those bookend scenes, I want to shout out Ray as Gwen, who I think is so goddamn funny in those scenes. They just nail Gwen. I mean, they've been playing Gwen forever, but for whatever reason, that sort of, because those scenes are so condensed, hyper-focused thing, like they just got to play Gwen to 11, and it's so funny.
To me, it kind of felt like a stressed out parent just trying to wrangle a bunch of children.
Yes.
Like, you're not going to get any candy unless you all sit down and shut up.
Oh, it's so good. Ray was awesome in this episode.
Oh, yes.
I want to give a shout out to Scott Tofty. The score for this episode was Chef Kiss. Amazing.
Yeah.
So good.
So good.
The heist music particularly was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's interesting too is everyone keeps calling it the heist music because but it's actually the Overachievers theme. So that was the first time we've heard it.
Yeah.
But that's what this is. He wrote an Overachievers theme, and that's what it is. But yeah, it's very Carpenter-y, the score, the Overachievers theme in particular. Very, very Carpenter-y, like sounded like Carpenter-y, or I don't know who did the score for the original Terminator, but it kind of sounded like Terminator a little bit too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was cool. Synthy and awesome.
Oh yeah. Very synthy. Yeah.
Yeah. Tofty's talented.
So talented. Yeah.
I want to give shout outs to Natalie, Kristen, Paul, and Naomi Overachievers and Lorelai. Those were my favorite scenes to direct, mostly because I didn't write them, but also like it was so funny. They're so funny. And then also I wanted to give a shout out to Nick Jimenez, because Billy is in this for like a snippet. But the line where he's explaining that like, all the inmates are going to be terminated. The take that I ended up using scared me so much listening to like my friend be evil that I had to like stand up from my computer and walk away. I was like, oh my God, Nick is really good, but I am very scared.
That is
He's really
not
good.
the first time I've heard that.
I think my shout out I really want to give out to is Nick Louie, who plays Henry. He is amazing every time I hear him. So, and big props to him, because he hasn't been in a lot of episodes, but he slays it when he's there.
Yeah.
There's so
as
much
that
presence.
character.
Yeah.
He's
Commands.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I'd also like to say Billy McCartney too as his character in the season too. Billy, love him.
Everybody loves Leo.
He just sounds like he's having the time of his life playing Leo.
Yeah.
Oh man, you guys have no idea what you're in for next episode. He has an extended like monologue. That is just absolutely spectacular.
I can't wait to hear that.
Oh man, I just finished editing that scene today, and it is
Nice.
so good.
Chef kiss. Mwah.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So both those guys, like to give big props to them because they are amazing every time.
Yeah, we had a real showcase in this episode. I mean, we kind of got at least a little moment with everybody, which is really cool.
Yeah, that was the hard thing with those bookends, because you want everybody to have a little moment. I also want to double shout out. I just want to shout out Zach in the second half of like, you were there, I was your boss.
Yes.
Like, just the absolute deadpan of that is just so good. Of like, yeah, we've made Joel go do like crazy
all
stuff
over the place,
all over the place, and then in just that moment, he was just like, yeah, remember episode 1? Yeah, I was your boss. Like, I'm very good at this business thing. And it was a flawless delivery. So,
oh yes, as always. All right, does anybody have any final thoughts on this monumental episode?
Monumental.
I wrote one thing down about Billy's heel turn, even though it really wasn't. Like, I kind of always had a feeling there was something really dark with Billy. And I remember recording the lines and thinking back to Billy's big reveal, where I kind of forget how, but Charlotte was locked in a cage or a jail, and Billy's like monologuing, and I'm like, your partner's in a cage. Like, get her out
Sums
of
up
there.
Billy pretty well. Yeah,
Pretty much. Yeah. So it equally surprised me and didn't surprise me that he's the cause of, or he's responsible for Henry's death. Because of course he would kill someone to get ahead. That's 100% in his wheelhouse.
It was also interesting to hear, like, this is one of the maybe the first episode where we hear Billy kind of flustered a little bit, like as the plan was completing, he gets a little tripped up as he notices that the drones are powering down, and it was interesting to hear, like, that was the first time he was kind of like off balance a little bit, and it was cool that was juxtaposed with like the worst thing he's ever done, and to be able to get both of those things at the same time. He's really interesting. I guess I'll go with interesting. Sure, interesting guy.
Yeah, Nick's performance as Billy goes into some really interesting places in the next couple of episodes. I'm really excited for everyone to hear it. I think it's cool.
Yeah, you haven't heard anything yet. Just wait.
Yeah.
Just wait. You think it's good now?
Oh man.
Just hold on to your seats, folks.
There's a scene between Nathan and Billy in the next episode that it was that I wrote that I was just like giggling and cackling to myself the whole time that I was writing it. And then I sent it to Cass, and she was like, "This is the greatest scene I've ever read in my life." And I was like, "Yes."
Oh, William and I have many good times together. Yes, we do.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
There's the next episode. There's some good stuff coming. There really is. Can't wait for everybody to listen to it.
We still have a couple more things to figure out. Like we got another mention of the mysterious David and the nostalgia project that he is working on with not too much more information than that. So sounds cool that there's a couple more feet left to drop.
Yeah, there's so the next episode is Comic-Cons, and it is essentially part 1 of the mid-season finale. And so we're getting Comic-Cons as part 1, and then the episode after that would be part 2, and is our mid-season finale before we take a break until January. So yeah, the next 2 episodes sort of go together narratively in many ways, but they're distinctive enough that I think everyone's going to enjoy them separately.
Cool. I am very stoked. All right. I want to say thank you again to my guests today, Scott, Cass, Rachel, Brian, for joining me. And thank you to all of you, the fans, the underdogs, for listening. If you'd like to support the show, please join the Dueling Genre Patreon at duelinggenre.com/support. You'll also get access to classic Geek by Night episodes, scripts, and other behind-the-scenes materials, as well as bonus content from some of Dueling Genre's best shows. You can also tell your friends, families, and followers to subscribe to Geek by Night on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you're listening to this right now. And stay tuned for the next episode on November 29th, Comic Cons, the first half of the mid-season finale. Thanks for going beyond Geek by Night with us. Have a super day.